In this lesson, we're going to look through the differences and similarities between the brand new Pioneer DJ DDJ-FLX10 and the Rane 4, Rane's flagship controller for Serato. So if you're a Serato user wondering which of these two units might be the best one to go for, watch on, we'll cover it all. They're both flagships. They're both arguably the best controller you can get for Serato right now. Their main competition is each other, although you might look at the Roland 707M as a good competitor for both of these as well. So it's game on here really, and also they're both very stems heavy. They've both got a lot of features which are designed to work with Serato's stems function. So let's do exactly what we've set out to do here and decide which is best. Well, let's look at the basics first. They are both performance DJ controllers. They're both designed for the top-end pro DJ who wants the very best performance out of Serato. They've both got fantastic pads. They've both got incredible features to help you DJ better, like beat jump and slip mode and sensor, and they've both got a great way of accessing your library so you can do all your playlists and all that kind of thing. You know, all the functions that you'd expect to find are there by and large when it comes to the basics. There are differences. For instance, the Rane has got a click in the middle and a light on the pitch control, whereas on the Pioneer, there's no click, but there is a tempo reset button which will quickly reset the tempo to 0 when you press it. Also, the Rane has got pitch bend buttons, so you don't need to touch the jog wheel to nudge your tracks. You can use pitch bend. That's something that you don't find on the Pioneer. It's also got slightly better beat jump features because it's easier to change the length of the beat jump on the Rane. The biggest thing, I think, if we're looking at the basics, is that the Rane has got a split cue button on it for your headphones, which is tucked around the front here. And the split cue puts the master through one and the cued item through the other. You don't get that on this one. Bit of a curious omission, I would say, because a lot of DJs who are used to using club gear want that. But by and large, look, they're very, very similar spec as far as the basics go. They're both very well built. This is built in the typical Pioneer standard, so you've got aluminium top plates here, plastic top plate here, a mixture of plastic and metal throughout. It's deeper this way than the Rane, but not quite as wide, and it's not quite as high on the desk either as the Rane. The Rane is all metal. It's got kind of big feet underneath it like a turntable, so it raises a little bit higher. So if you want to put other gear next to it, it's going to be at the height of pro gear, whereas the Pioneer isn't. And basically they're both built really nicely. This is a little bit wider and a little bit shallower than the Pioneer. So let's talk about the compatibility and suitability of using these with Serato, because there's a difference here. The Rane is designed to work with Serato, that's all it does. Whereas this one here is Serato and Rekordbox. And so that means that some of the labeling on here is different than you would expect for Serato, because it's mainly a Rekordbox controller, that's its primary thing. So around the pads, for instance, the naming is wrong, and there's a few features that aren't the same. So these features here is called mix point, select mix point link, is not in Serato at all. So these buttons have been mapped to something else in Serato. Now they both come with the ability to unlock Serato DJ Pro, and they both have Serato pitch and time in the box, which means that you can use all the key matching and key moving functions on both units. So they both unlock the software. If you haven't got the software, they'll both give you everything you need to get going with it. They don't give you DVS, by the way, which is when you plug in turntables. You need to buy that extra. So there's no difference in the software you get with them, just that some of the features on this one won't work as labeled. And the pads, you're going to have to learn the pad modes for Serato because these are labeled up for Rekordbox. Whereas over on this one, everything is labeled up exactly for Serato. It's only a Serato controller. So what about the external inputs and outputs on both of these units? Well, as you'd expect, they're both completely pro. All the stuff around the back of both of them is exactly what you would expect. You've got two laptops you can plug in. You can plug in two microphones to each. You can plug in DMX to this one, which is crazy. It's actually got a lighting output socket on the back, which there's no DJ controller anywhere that's got that. But they are by and large the same. USB-C's on the back of the DDJ-FLX10 as opposed to USB-Bs on the back of this, the kind of like printer cable USBs for connecting your laptop to. Doesn't matter, they'll all work with every laptop, you just need to get the right cable. I guess it's probably worth pointing out that the Pioneer unit has got microphone sockets around the back, one XLR combi and one TRS, whereas the Rane unit has got two XLR TRS combi jacks around the back. And also, while we're talking about microphones, this one here has only got the low and high EQ and talk over on both mic channels, whereas over on this one here, you get separate. You get one set on the top and one set around the front for the two mics. So you do have a little bit more microphone control. This one also has echo on the mic, which is weird. I would much prefer to have seen reverb, but this one here doesn't have anything extra on the microphones there at all. Right, let's talk about the Jogwheels. They are different, but they're both very, very good. So on the FLX10, the Jogwheels are basically CDJ Jogwheels. They feel and sound like using a CDJ. Whereas over here, the Jogwheels are apparently the same size, 8.5 inch, but they feel wider because they don't go in as much, and they're also lower, and they're also silent. So different style of Jogwheel, but both extremely nice to use. The Jogwheels on this unit don't have a lit ring around them, whereas on this unit there is a lit ring around them, which is quite useful because it can change color depending upon what mode you're in. So that's worth knowing. But basically they are different, but they're both very good. There's a difference here that this has got a jog feel adjuster, whereas there's no jog feel adjustment over on this one. So the Jogwheels will always spin the same amount when you spin them with the same force over here, whereas on this one here, you can set them to light, they'll spin forever, or you can set them to heavy and they'll stop pretty much straight away. So you can find the feel that works for you on there. Right, let's look at the screens. On the FLX10, the screens are in the jogs here are very good. There's lots of modes that you can select to have different looks on the screens down here. But the screens over on this one here are equally in the jogs and they're good, but you just get the one mode with your waveform and a few bits of extra information on there. So slightly better screens on here. You can get parallel waveforms on these as well. So a win there for the Pioneer. However, over on this unit, we've also got screens underneath all of the pads, which give you information about how the pad is set and about the mode that you're in and about the stems mode you're in and all that kind of stuff. So that's something that's great on here, which you don't get on here at all. However, there is a heads up mode where you can hold down a button and it will show you the cue pads on here as well. So they're both quite good as far as screens go, very good actually, but they do have strengths and weaknesses in that area. So the sampler is a volume control on both units. So here's a sampler here. Your sampler is controlled on the pads in the software, but there's a volume control for it there. It's the same over here, volume control for the sampler. However, on this one, you can choose to put the sampler through the 4th mixer channel, and that means that you can then use the effects on the sampler. So it's just slightly better on the Rane 4 than it is on the FLX10. Now, when it comes to adding extra decks to these units, you might have noticed if you're eagle-eyed that I've got a deck here. This one is the Rane 12. This is a motorized turntable deck. These are Serato control accessories. You can plug this into your laptop and it will work with anything, any Serato controller, including both of these. However, the Rane 12s are really, really well suited, unsurprisingly, to this. They're the same height, the same shape. When you put them on the end, it just looks like it's made to work with this unit here, not so much with the Pioneer. Another deck you might want to consider is this one I've got here, which is the Denon DJ-SC. This is actually the SC6000. It's the LC6000 you want, which is the controller version of this deck, which will work with them as well. It's another Serato accessory. That's the full one. You can get a smaller one, which is called the LC. I might actually have it down here somewhere. No, it's migrated to the other studio. So you can plug in any Serato control deck, of which the Rane and the Denon DJ LC6000 are definitely worth looking at. And the Rane certainly suits the Rane unit better because it's got the same build quality, same finish, same font, and it's the same height and general size as that one there. However, extra decks are completely possible on both of them, which is cool. Right. The bit that I'm sure lots of you have been waiting for, I'm going to remind you now, we have got a full review of both of these units showing you in depth with audio quality analysis and all the different features of stems. Stems is where you can take any track and in real time in Serato, separate it into its constituent parts, bass, drums, melody and vocals, and then you can DJ with them. You can do really cool things with them. Both of these units are sold on their stems ability, but both approach stems in a very different way. Now, they both work with Serato stems, which is great because at the time of recording this, Serato stems sound amazing, much better than any competitors, or at least much better than Rekordbox, which is a big competitor on this unit at the time of recording this. I'm sure Rekordbox will catch up in the end. And so you get to use the unit of your choice with Serato's pretty excellent stems. However, the approach is very different. So firstly, let's talk about the approach on the Rane, because the approach on the Rane is kind of the Serato rubber stamped approach, if you like. So you do get these buttons here just to quickly select the acapella and the instrumental on the track you're playing, just a quick tap and you're there, you're into that. Nothing else needed. But there's also a dedicated stems mode on the pads, which will give you the ability to turn on and off all 4 stems: drums, vocals, instruments and bass line, and also give you the ability to echo and to use vinyl break on individual stems to pull them in and out of the mix rather than just turning them on and off. All very simple to use and all on pads, which is, as I say, the kind of way that Serato wants you to do it on the pads anyway. These are unique to the Rane 4, these acapella and instrumental buttons. However, over on this one, it's a little bit different. On this one, the pad modes are not designed to work with stems at all. Instead, your stems are controlled at the top by separate buttons for drums, vocals and instruments. And so you get 3 buttons here against the 2 over on the Rane, but the pad mode is not standard. If you wanted the pad mode, you'd have to switch it out, which we'll talk about in a little while. So the other thing that both of these have got, which is really cool, is instant doubles. Now, instant doubles is where you can quickly just double tap a button and it'll put whatever's playing on one deck onto the other, but it does it with stems. So for instance, we're looking at the Pioneer FLX10 now. I could double tap the vocal button up here and it'll put the vocal over on this deck, playing at the same speed, everything the same about it, and then I could mix in the vocal and the instrumental and be playing with them both down here. Instant doubles is really cool when you use it with stems, and it's very easy to throw anything you want from this deck to this deck just by double tapping vocals or instruments or drums. However, over on this one, we also have a feature like that. It works a little bit differently. It's called stem split, and it is the same in that it will quickly separate the track up into, by default, vocal and the rest of the instruments, but it doesn't do it from the left to the right. It does it on the same deck. So in other words, this is a 4-deck controller, of course they both are, but you've only got one actual deck because there's a button to change the deck from deck 1 to deck 3. So this will do it all on one side. So the instant doubles works kind of up and down and not left and right over on here. And it defaults to put in the vocal on the other deck, whereas on this one here you get the choice. However, it's very easy on the Pioneer, on the Rane unit, to choose, once you've done that, something else. It's not hard to change that, however it does default to that. So the instant doubles are probably slightly better on this unit, not least because if you want to do it all on the same side like you can over here, so that 1 and 3 are where you split your track into its stems, it's possible to do it here just by a quick change in the settings. It's not possible to do it that way over on the Rane. You're stuck with keeping it on the one deck, whereas on here you've got both options. So another thing you get on the Pioneer that you don't get on the Rane is the ability to switch the EQs out to work with stems. So in other words, instead of having low, mid and high, you can have drums, vocals and instrumentation on these buttons here, on these knobs here. So you can be fading these in and out of the mix rather than just turning them on and off. Now, one thing you might have noticed that we haven't covered yet, but we're damn well going to cover it now, this has only got 3 stems. This has only got drums, vocals and instruments, whereas over on this one, there are 4 because it's on the pads and we get drums, bass, melody and vocal. So what's going on? Well, the way Pioneer DJ has thought through stems is that they think 3 is enough and that any more is just overkill, so you get 3. So the way that they've done it on here for Serato is that they've programmed it so that when you press instruments, you get not only the bass line, but the melodies all in one. So they basically combined 2 of Serato's stems into one there. But you can go into the Serato settings and switch out the pad mode. One of the pad modes you don't want to use, like, don't know, loop roll or something, and you can then say, okay, I want that to be my stems pads. So you can control the pads, the stems via the pads on the Pioneer one in the same way that you can over on the Rane if you want to. You get that choice there, but it would be a bit silly to do that because you're kind of going to start missing out on things if you're combining the 2, or it might get a bit complicated. Right, there's another thing that this one has got, which you don't find over on the Rane, which is this FX Part Select. So FX Part Select lets you choose vocal, drums or instrumental, or 2 of the 3, and then instead of the color effects, we're going to move on to the effects properly in a minute, instead of the color effects and the beat effects affecting the whole track, it would just affect that part of the track. So in other words, I could flick into vocals and then I could use a filter and it would only filter the vocals, or I could put a transform effect on here on the drums and it would only chop up the drums, leaving the vocals and the instruments all right. It's all or nothing. So in other words, what you have set here is going to work across all the effects, and also you can't have like the drums being affected on one track and the vocals on another and so on. Again, it's all or nothing, but this is really good. It's immediate and it's fun to use, and there's nothing like that over on the Rane 4 when it comes to the effects. But just remember that there are pad effects for dropping things in and out of the mix and making them sound cool when you're mixing with the individual stems on the pads. So it's just not possible to then use these effects on just one of the stems, which would be nice. I mean, it's something I reckon they could look at and see if they could add. It'd certainly be something that would allow this unit to catch up a little bit with the Pioneer. Right, talking of effects, let's just talk through what you get on each unit, because this is another big difference between the two of them. Let's start off then with the Pioneer. This has got very standard club style effects. If you've ever used a club mixer, you'll know what's going on here. We've got sound color effects here, which you could call channel effects. They're basically per channel, and you choose one of them here. There are 6 to choose from: space, dub echo, crush, pitch, noise, and filter. And these can be switched in to any channel you want and affected here. They are hardware effects. They're built into the unit. Over on this unit, we only have 4 of these: filter, filter roll, noise, and flanger. And they're software effects. These are controlling effects that are built into Serato. So if you were to unplug Serato and be mixing with a couple of things plugged in around the back, these won't work. In fact, the only thing these will do is filter. So it does effectively have a filter built in hardware, but these are software effects when you've got Serato plugged in. Now, when it comes to the main effects, on this unit here, the main effects are in this area here. And again, they're different because you get 22 hardware effects and a little screen to show you what's going on as well, and a little joystick that lets you tweak other parameters as well. 22 hardware effects built into the unit, and they are controlled here with these paddles, which is a very scratch mixer way of doing things. Over on this unit, you get 14 effects, which are really, really good. They're in this kind of club layout here. And all of this here, if you've ever used a club mixer, is going to feel very, very familiar. You turn them on to where you want to play the effects here, and put the level on here, press the on off here, and select your effects here. It's just a different way of doing it. This is the club effect method, and this one here is the scratch mixer effect method. You'll probably have one of these that you prefer, so do bear this in mind as a big difference. This one here also controls Serato's effects on these buttons. So you get your 22, but you can quickly switch in to Serato's effects as well and control the 3 effects on each side, or just 1 effect unit on each side, depending how it's set in Serato. You get absolutely none of that on here. There's no controlling of Serato's effects on this unit. It's all purely hardware effects. So we kind of covered everything there. They're all the main differences between these units. The price is going to be a big one, right? And the good news is, I guess, that the Rane unit seems to have come down in price, probably to compete with this unit here. The Rane's about $1,700. This is about $1,600. I think you'll find that they're the same price when you go looking. It's just the way I think this is going to play out in the market. So really, price isn't going to be a consideration here. So which one should you go for? Well, again, we've got reviews of these. I actually play you the music through the stems and the effects and show you how a lot of this stuff works with the software running and all that on the reviews. It's a lot of money to spend, so underneath there's a link to the review for this one and also a link to the review for this one, both written and video. So do go and look at those. But if you want the summary, if you are someone who wants the closest possible mapping to Serato, you like the scratch mixer layout, you like to DJ with paddles, maybe you want to pair with something like these units here, the Rane 12s, and you want the full Serato stems experience, the way Serato intended you to use it with all the bells and whistles added on as well, the Rane 4 is probably the right unit for you. However, if you want to use rekordbox as well, rekordbox is great software. This unplugs it. It's a big advantage of this unit that it comes working with 2 pieces of pro software, not 1. If you like the way Pioneer DJ has thought about stems with the 3 channels here and with the FX part select here, and be able to use stems on your faders as well, on your channel pots as well, and you think, actually, that makes more sense to me and I like having 3 instead of 4. Well, this unit will give you that, with the added advantage that you can also use some of the way Serato wants you to do it on the pads as well. So you might prefer the Pioneer stems, and of course you're getting to use the audio quality of Serato stems because you're using Serato software. So if you hear people kind of like saying, I don't like how the record box ones work, it doesn't matter. This unit here will sound as good as the Rane unit will when it comes to the stems, because ultimately it's the software that's doing the work, it's not the hardware. And if you are someone who just thinks, you know what, I like the way club gear is. I like club mixes, I like club CDJs, I play on them sometimes, I'm going to play on them sometimes. Then the big selling point of the original DDJ 1000 and 1000 SRT when they first came out all those years ago that looked like this is that it feels like club gear to use. And this has wisely carried on that thinking. It feels like club gear to use. Whereas this doesn't. This is like a cross between controllers and scratch equipment. You might prefer that, but if you want that club feel, this is still going to be the one that stands out for you. The truth is, these are both exceptional DJ controllers. We are spoiled for choice here as Serato users. Either of these will give you so much to work with that I can almost guarantee that the only thing that will be holding you back will be your imagination. They're both excellent, but I hope I've helped you to decide which one might be right for you in this video. If you've enjoyed this, become our latest member. We're Digital DJ Tips, the leading online DJ school. When you join Digital DJ Tips, we'll give you a copy of our book, Rock the Dance Floor, which is the Amazon bestseller on how to DJ. But also you'll get our Tuesday tips email every week, which is the best way to improve your DJing because it's full of news, reviews, features, lessons and mixes from us and from our guest DJs such as DJ Jazzy Jeff, James Hype, Laidback Luke and DJ Angelo, who have all made fantastic DJ courses that you can also get from Digital DJ Tips. But the first step is to join the site, digitaldjtips.com/join, or just go to digitaldjtips.com. There's buttons everywhere to help you do it there. Thank you for watching. This has been Phil Morse in the Digital DJ Tips studio. From me, get good, get out there, make the moments. I'll see you again very soon.